All right. I'm trying to go live again. Somebody already put a dislike. I didn't even go on live yet. How can you dislike it if you didn't go? If I didn't go live yet? But anyway, I went live on the wrong channel. You know, that's how professional these streams are. Today we're going to talk about, because this is a question I hear: is it still worth it learning to code in 2022? Right? Is it still worth it? Does it still make sense? Wherever you're young and you're thinking of going to computer science degree, if you're in your mid-20s, mid-30s, whatever, you're looking to switch careers, is it still worth it? Because this is still the question that I hear from a lot of people. They're like, hey, I've thought about learning to code, and you know, now it's like, I don't know if I want to do it. And so today I want to talk about, is it still worth it? What is the reality of switching careers into web development? And I always have to have this conversation again with everybody, because there's a huge number of people that have this romanticized version of what learning to code is and what is switching careers is. And they have this romanticized version that with minimum amount of work, they're going to be able to get to where they want to go. But the truth reality, it's anything that's worth doing, especially doing well, is going to be difficult. So I do want to chat about that today. So if you're joining us today, welcome. I know it's in US, it's a 3-day weekend with the holidays, so I'm not anticipating the stream being crazy, but I do want to talk while everybody's jumping in right now, because I get this question a lot. Is it still worth learning web development in 2022 with everything that's going on? I mean, about to be 2023. And so the idea here, and hey, Kit Kat, what's up? Hit Squad Gaming, good morning, afternoon. Hey, good to see you. Coding lady, coder lady, good morning. Buncher, probably evening. Yeah, for you it's evening time, or about to be like, what is it, 4 p.m. Kit Kat, what's up? Hey, everybody's saying hello. Fantastic. So I'm still like trying to get back into the live stream more regularly, but I get this question a lot. Is it still worth learning to code in 2022? Because a lot of people are kind of like, the world, we don't know what's happening, and it's just the way it is, you know? And so what do? How do you plan your life? Do I commit to this journey? And also, I feel like there's a lot of people that are also living this romanticized life in terms of learning to code, because you watch a lot of YouTube and you get this kind of romantic view of how to become a developer, where it's like, okay, I'm going to learn language, you know, there's always plenty of jobs, and I'm just going to be able to get this career started or jump into a new career, and everything's going to be great. And so let me just show you this slide. This is just a random post. And listen, they literally said, it's good time to learn to code in 2022. And they say it's good time to learn to code in 2022 because it's highly sought after skill. The tech industry is growing and advancing rapidly, resulting in high demand for software developers. With focus and a lot of practice, you can end up in a tech job with Silicon Valley. And I'm gonna assume this article is really was written at the beginning of the year, and they're like promoting their thing that they're doing. But I just wanted to kind of share that, because it's like, it's a very kind of weird, interesting take. And they're literally saying, if you have a background in any of these languages, like if you only know one, right, and getting strong knowledge of these programming languages may take only a matter of months. Like, what are they smoking, to be honest? And if you want to work in a self-developer, you'll be able to find jobs with any of these programming languages. And so the reason why I bring that up, and again, is that reality of what it is to get hired as a developer? And the short answer is definitely not. And today we're going to talk about, is it still worth it? We're going to talk about some useful strategies that you could do that can help you to stand out in a world that may be saturated. And so a lot of the things that I want to say here is that, let me just figure stuff out here. Yeah, so the thing that I want to say here is, and let me say hello to more people jumping here. Mohammed, what's up? Maxime, what's up? And Sharon, hey. So the reason why I wanted to do this is because I wanted to kind of cut through the misconception, talk about this concept of, are you too late? Should you just not even try? Which we all know the answer is no. I had to make these obnoxious thing. But it's not easy. And like XYZ says, lol, these people are not smoking sniffling something really hard stuff. Yeah, 100%. So the reason that I wanted to say here for all you is that no, the answer is like you could still break into the industry. You could still start a career. It's never too late. But with today's economy, with stuff going on, to say to you that there are no hiring freezes or people are careful on, going through the process of growing their team, that's a true thing. It exists. Not saying that you can't get hired and you can't get a job. It's just going to take some time and it's going to be a bit, challenging like anything else. So my journey to get to a point where I am now, where I love my job, it took literally from the age of 36, working like I started to learn to code around like 38. I got some internships at 39. I got my real first tech job, and then just going from there, I'm 42 now, and working at a company that I could say like, wow, I'm really happy with the job that I have. So going from 36 to 42 to a point of income that I could say I'm really happy with what I'm doing, that took some time. That took a lot of massive work. And I want to kind of talk about that because for a lot of people who are looking to break into the industry, don't believe the hype, right? Nice. Malik saying hello. Greetings to the Coding After 30 channel owner and subscribers. Oh, fantastic. Well, glad to have you here. Yeah, and XYZ saying hiring freeze is 100% real. 100% real. And so today we're going to talk about, should you stop trying to learn to code? Should you break? No, the answer is no. I made that thumbnail as a joke, right? I made it crazy because I know somebody's going to be like, I knew it. Learning to code is like the worst thing you could possibly do right now. There's no jobs. No. If you look at all the industries across the board, and there's lots of different things. And by the way, I'm going to say, if you don't like coding enough to dedicate your time to learning it and knowing that it's going to be difficult, then probably learning to code is not for you. But if you look by industry, there's plenty of places where you could get jobs, but the tech industry still has highest income based on those industries. Unless you go to like a lawyer, doctor, what have you. But here's a story I want to tell you, right? This is a story. Before I tell you, is it worth learning to code in 2022? The answer is yes. Here's the story. My sister, she loves me. I love her, right? But in my family, through my life decisions, challenges that I had, I made a bunch of mistakes. I've tried the college route. I dropped out a bunch of times. I never graduated a university. I was always the black sheep of the family, and I was like that person that people look to. Here's an example of the guy you don't want to be like, right? At 19, I had my daughter. I quit everything so I could work and support her. I worked at restaurants, I worked construction, and then late in my life, and I eventually started a martial art business, which is relevant to this conversation. But eventually, I got hired as a developer, and I started making my first job was making $13.75 an hour, which was nothing to be a React developer. And where I am now, I make pretty good money. And this is the conversation I had with my sister, and she's like, Paul, I'm really happy to see the success you have arrived at. But I could see that she had a little bit sadness in her eyes because she graduated out of college, 4-year degree. She was going to go for her master's in the program that she wanted, and even with that getting done and out of the way, she would still make less money, right? And I'm not saying money is everything. I'm just putting in perspective the fact that regardless if you go the, boot camp route or CS degree. By the way, a lot of people think I'm against colleges. I love colleges. If you are young enough and you're able to, if you live in a country where they subsidize your education, 100% go get a computer science degree. If you live in US, go to a public school. You could even do community college, but you could go to your state school where tuition tends to be cheaper. Get your computer science degree if you're young enough, because it's still worth it. There's still a lot of cool stuff, and the college experience is amazing. Just for that, it's pretty cool. But you don't need to. You could go the self-taught route. Is it going to be easy? The answer is no, right? So every method that you take is going to have its own challenges. For me, and this is not the route that I went, but if you are going the more traditional route, like a computer science degree, your ability to get a job is going to be easier. If you go to bootcamp or self-taught route, bootcamps might have a little bit benefit, which I could talk about later, of it'll make your life getting a job easier. But as a self-taught developer, it's just going to be hard throughout, because you have to understand, as a self-taught developer, is you don't have an education to show. You don't even have a boot camp to show. So how do you show your work? How do you show what you know? How do you show that you are able to compete with newly college CS grads or bootcamp grads to be able to demonstrate that you're able to do the work? And the matter of fact is that you basically have to make sure that all your learning is done publicly, so there's a record of you making progress. And we're definitely going to be talking about it. And also, by the way, I want to show this here. KitKat is still paying back student debt from my law degree, which I never use any jobs. And listen, I went to I went to a trade school. I went to University of New Haven to study engineering. I dropped down. So I had for 1 year only at University of New Haven, doing an engineering degree, which I dropped out of, I had $45,000 for that 1 year. So I can't even imagine how much your debt of law school was. And then even my trade school was 20 grand that I didn't really do much with. I was going to be electronic technician or like what have you. And so I dropped out. So I had to pay like around 60 some odd $1,000 of college debt, and that's real, you know. So if you but that's a lot of people, they go through that. And so the cost of education is high, and that's why some people will consider the self-taught route. And for you, KitKat, like, really happy. I mean, you've been a member of the community like since day one, literally, and your story is amazing because you went and did the work, you did everything that you had to do, and you got hired as a web developer, software engineer, which is fantastic. Your story is amazing, and would love to have you chat about it whenever things stabilize with everything, including myself, because I'm very sporadic with the streams, but I'm trying to keep to Saturday. By the way, learning to code is not easy. Another thing that I want to say, a lot of people right now are having a hard time. And listen, wherever you live in the country, and I'm just lucky. And when I tell people that I'm not, what's that word? Privileged to live in the United States, I would be lying to you. I am highly privileged to live in the United States, highly privileged to have the opportunities that I have here. And the thing is, and wherever you live in the world, there's always going to be challenges, and some places are completely atrocious and very difficult, even though you may be doing everything right. And at that point, it's like my heart goes to you, because it is very difficult to fight against that adversity, especially if you think of what's happening in the world. And sometimes there's certain things that are outside of your control. But with that being said, this year I had a bunch of stuff happen to me, not as crazy as what is happening in Ukraine or other parts of the world, but I broke up with my fiance, which devastated me, made me feel like really depressed, which I recovered from. And then literally not too long after that, my daughter's mother passed away in a car accident. So there's another devastating blow to me. And that's why I took a lot of time from YouTube, and I basically kind of had to think about my mental health, and I'm fine now. I figured out that and this is where the story is leading, is that regardless if you're trying to decide if you want to learn to code, if you're suffering through other difficulties in your life, this is the little part that helped me, is that I realized that there's certain things, like I couldn't stop certain things from happening. Like my daughter's Marissa's mom passing away this year, young, it's terrible, right? And we were all devastated, and it affects us. But I realized that there certain things that will happen in your life that you have absolutely no control of. And there was a point when that event happened, I literally got my life consumed with a lot of negativity, and I realized that I started falling down a spiral that was going to be unrecoverable. I was literally going to go into deep depression. And the thing that stopped that is realizing that, oh my God, it is a devastating event, but me as Paul, I cannot go back in time. I cannot change that day. I cannot fix the past. It happens. I cannot change decisions that I was not able to make. And this is kind of some places and some situations that we may be living in. And so the idea that I realized, and maybe it's kind of that optimistic delusion that I'm living, but it's make the best of what you have in your small life, your world. Even if you have things that are going around you, that are outside of your control. And please understand, I am well aware, I have family in Ukraine. Listen, if you're in certain parts of the world, your life will be dictated by the situation of what is happening. And if you're living in Ukraine, like, you're going to be fighting for your country. You know what I mean? You'll be like, I know people in Ukraine that work, and it's such a hard experience because they have to be positive at work, focusing on what they're doing, but at the same time, they are constantly living in the world that terrible stuff is happening. And so, like, I just want to say that, you know, if you live in a place where right now you're not, you know, faced with serious adversity that I just described, you know, like learning pains, whatever, but like the serious stuff that I just talked about, you have the opportunity to do something better and change your life. So is learning to code in 2022 with everything that's happening? Yes, it's 100%, like, it's not too late. You could still do it. And that's why I made that thumbnail like that, as ridiculous as it is because we all have a choice. And I just talked about all the terrible things that happened to me this year and how I'm still staying optimistic. Because why am I optimistic to a point where some people say, Paul, you're delusional? The reason why I'm optimistic is because what is the counterbalance of that? I want to be optimistic about that, the things that I can't control. If I do my work, if I study, if I put myself out there, if I build the projects to put in my portfolio, if I continue my journey, I'm going to get hired. And that's exactly what happened to me. I got a job. You all know the story. I work at my dream company now at Strappy, which is also like fantastic. And the thing that I wanted to say is that we all have challenges. There's nobody, like, if you were playing that game, like, you know, where it's like, oh, my life is harder than yours because this happened to me, or I guarantee you there's always going to be someone in the comments or in our community that will always have it worse than you, always going to have it worse than you. And so the idea here is, what I'm trying to say is that I might try to be optimistic and try to do my best in my small universe of the things that I can control, than to be like, man, the world is turning to crap, I might as well give up. And some people are doing that, which is insane. No, the counter argument of just letting it defeat you is terrible, because then what is the purpose of your life, right? We need to find it ourselves. And so when all those terrible things that happened to me, you know, between like breaking up with like the love of my life, Marissa's mom passing away, I realized is that with that hardship, I needed a purpose to continue, right? If I stopped doing the things that I had a pursuit of something, I would go deep into depression. So I made my pursuit be coding, my work. And even at work, they're like, Paul, you have to take some time off. I'm like, I did. And it wasn't good for me, because I want to be part of something greater than myself, to be my rock, my support, to help me climb out of this dark time. And the reason why I share this with you is because that's exactly what pursuit of getting the job that you want, not even if it's in coding, not even if it's like whatever your passion is, making money, whatever it is, it's like you need to define that as a purpose in your life that is so strong that it is your rock. Your pursuit of being better than you were yesterday is your rock to continue to be positive in your life, to continue moving forward. Anyway, I think like that was a lot of like personal stuff, and I see a lot of, you know, great comments here, and thank you so much. Really appreciate it. But not to spend a lot of time here, I do want to talk about, is it worth learning to code in 2020? Yes, it is. Are there job freezes and companies laying people off? Yes, they are. And so what do? Well, you keep going. And so you continue to fight. And my story here is I kept applying to jobs. I kept being rejected. And here's the truth. The reason I've been being rejected is because my skill at the time in that particular interview was not good enough for them to say, hey, we're gonna hire you. But here's the thing, every day you spend getting better, even if it's by 1%, your trajectory is always forward. And so for every no I got, I kept going home and I'm being, what can I change? What can I focus on? What can I do to keep improving? And my literally mindset was, I'm going to keep learning this thing until I'm good enough to get hired. And that's exactly what happened. And all the companies that I worked for now, people gave me good praise. Like, hey, you're always doing your best. You're always learning. We love the enthusiasm and my purpose to always get better. And so there is a way. The one thing that I want to say about learning to code, and definitely talk about your stories in the comments as well. And this is kind of cool. Luke says, where I work, they hire a lot of career changers. That's pretty awesome. And Luke, I'd love to have another live stream with you. The last one we did was super fantastic. I'd love to talk about your experience because you are on your next role now, which is amazing. And Luke does C# and ASP.NET. And by the way, before people kind of get like, oh man, like I'm learning the wrong language, I don't know what I should be learning. Look, if you pick any top 5, like JavaScript, C#, Python, Java, whatever it is, PHP, there's still jobs available. The one caveat I would say, just do research to see what jobs are available in the area that you live in to make sure that you're studying the stuff that's for your demand. So let's talk about it. And Malik has a great question. Let's get to the meat of the things that we want to talk about. What's the best practice to learn how to code? And KitKat says she's doing John Smilga's Node course at the moment, and my JavaScripts have improved. I didn't realize learning BE improves FE. Yeah, and it's true. Learning backend will improve your JavaScript knowledge, which will help in your front end. And this is actually, let's talk about that. Both those points are really good. Like, when should you learn backend? When should you learn front end? So first thing I'm going to talk about is, let's go back to Malik's point. What is the best practice to learn to code? Okay, this is a very heavy question because I wasted a lot of time learning to code, and I feel there's many approaches, but I'm going to talk about my approach, something that works. And I think I have a Miro diagram that I will share to kind of talk about my strategy in just a second. But the first thing you want to do is, first of all, you want to identify, do you even want to do, web development, right? And if you do, like, I just wanted to preface that out there. I know, like, everybody's like, okay, I do want to do it. Okay, we got it. But you want to know, and you want to make sure that this is something you want to pursue and you are willing to do the work. That's number one. You're willing to make the commitment. Number two, search like the jobs that you want in your local area and see what comes up. See what technology comes up more. Like for me, for instance, researching like what is popular where I lived, and that's one of the reasons why I moved to Austin, Texas, is because there was more job opportunities than the original area that I lived. This is before everybody started like working remote. And make sure that you pick the technology that is at least in demand in your area. And that will be like step 2, like make a commitment. 2, do your research. And 3, come up with what it is. And for me is, I decided to go with front end. And so why did I choose front end development? Because everybody I talked to, and everybody's going to have an argument around this, but everybody I talked to, they said that front end development is just easier to break into the field. And to me, it is true. After starting to make that transition into back end development or even full stack, in my opinion, there is no junior jobs for full stack or back-end development. There just isn't. A lot of people expect you to have a lot more experience and, doing certain things. And so for me, it was the hardest thing to do. And so I decided and I chose to become a React developer, and this is what I do. And so my journey, I was really excited. I started taking a lot of classes, on Udemy, trying to learn every possible thing that I can. And that was a mistake. The biggest mistake is you are going to get stuck in tutorial hell. And the best way to fight being stuck in tutorial hell is to get out of it as fast as you can. And I have over 1,000 courses on Udemy, or getting there. Like, okay, maybe that's a lot. Like, I have over 600 courses. I have 2 different accounts. coding F30 and then whatever. And then I have 301 and 320 in the other. So like over 600 courses, which I spent a lot of money. Out of all those, I probably completed 11. So here's the thing, like, don't think doing another tutorial is going to make you get a job quicker. It is not. It's not going to do it. What's going to get you your job quicker is having a portfolio, which has great portfolio projects where you could talk about the code that you wrote. For instance, when actually Luke was a great example. Luke, when you did a live stream with me, you showed the project that you built, which was kind of cool because you built it with like bleeding edge technologies, which is pretty awesome. And what the best part about it is you were able to point anywhere in your code in your project and explain to me what it did and how you do things like differently. And that's not something a tutorial would basically help you, right? You need to build something yourself, your own, to get that real work experience, to be able to talk about code, explain your code, and even be able to talk about it afterwards, to talk about things that you would do differently. So number one, it's like, you got to get out of tutorial hell. So what do I recommend? How do I approach? What is a strategy to going and taking lessons, let's say in Udemy? So I have this mirror that I'm going to share, and let me go there. And so my computer crashed. So my streaming setup is not set up as the way it is. So you're probably not going to see my face here. But this is kind of like the steps that I take. And here's what I talk about. Number one, decide what you need to learn to get a job. And for me, I decided I want to become a React developer. Then I realized, what do I have to learn? This is not a question mark, React. And so decide what you need to learn. So, okay, you need to learn GitHub, you need to learn HTML, CSS, and Sass. You need to learn JavaScript, React, Next.js, TypeScript, consuming API, and databases. And so I decided that before embarking on my journey. And next, I created a very structured program, because if you don't have structure, you're going to be all over the place. You need to make sure that you are focusing on a plan. You need to have structure. And so you need to create a structured plan, which is what I was focusing on. And I didn't come up with a structured plan. First, I failed miserably. The reason I'm telling you about the structured plan now is because, man, I learned from my mistakes. I wasted years where I could have done better. And so when I talk about the structured plan, this is something that I would do. So here we go. Let me go back to my screen share here. So come up with a plan, figure out what you need to learn. So this is what I would recommend everybody that's looking into get started in front-end developer. Man, this is what you should focus on. GitHub and Git, HTML, CSS, and Sass, JavaScript, React, Next.js, TypeScript, consuming APIs, and database. And once you decide what it is, notice that, and I didn't do it for all of them, but I basically only chose one resource for one particular skill. I'm not taking 20 Udemy courses about HTML and CSS. Come on, look, I have a lot of classes on Udemy. Here's the thing. You only need one good resource for learning, period. Like when you go to college, think of this lunacy on Udemy, which I fell into. When you go to college and you take whatever Comp 101, but I don't know what their names for classes are. Next year or in that same semester, are you going to take another version of Comp 101? No, you're not. You're not, because your curriculum covered everything you needed to know for Comp 101, right? But Udemy doesn't work like that. Udemy, you look up HTML and CSS classes, they're all going to be that Comp 101 equivalent, meaning it's the same material packaged by a different instructor, same stuff, same curricular. Don't believe me? Go on Udemy and compare. They're all going to teach you the same stuff, maybe with slight variation. So there's no reason taking 2 or 3 courses in the same subject, because it's only going to waste time. Instead, take one course. If you're confused about something, Google, read the documentation, explore. So that is kind of what we're talking about. And look in here, right? And so what I recommend is pick for each one of those things that you identify that you need to know as a front-end developer, and I'm just using that as an example, create an outline of the path. This is like your own curriculum that you're going to follow. You're not going to have 10 courses for HTML, CSS. You're going to have one course, right? And this is the pattern that you follow. And this is the same pattern I use in everything I do to learn. And this is what I want to share with you, is something that helped me a lot. And you could try it. But let me tell you my logic behind it. So here I kind of talk about what I'm going to focus on, whatever, learning HTML and CSS. So number one, learn. And this is missing an error here. Whatever, I'll fix that later. But learn, find one resource for HTML, CSS, and SAS. Complete it fully, right? Complete that tutorial fully, right? Build all the projects in that tutorial. Push it to Git. Share it on your social if you want. Next, before moving on to the next course, like I'm really excited about JavaScript. I really want to learn JavaScript. Before moving on to the next course, what you need to do is you need to make sure that based on everything you learn here, everything you learn in that one course, go ahead and build your own project based on what you learn. And it'll be a project that showcases your ability in HTML and CSS, right? And now you have, what do you have? You completed one course. You have all those projects in that course that you could put in your portfolio, but you also have your own project that you built from scratch that will solidify everything you learned in that course. And now you could also have something of your own and not created by your instructor to put in your portfolio. And only then you move on to the next path. And then you follow the same path to learn JavaScript, right? You'll complete fully the whole course, complete all the projects. Then based on what you learned, build your own project for your portfolio, and you do it so on. So based on this approach, and I kind of went into NodeJS, I don't recommend going this crazy here, but what I would say, by the time you're done, you're going to have a project built in HTML, project built in JavaScript, project built in React, and now you could start applying while learning how to consume APIs. You should probably learn consuming APIs before starting to apply. I would say this is like really important knowledge. And by the way, consuming the API, I didn't build my own API. I was like, I'm not going for full stack. I'm not going for, learn like a job that will require me to know backend. So instead, I use something like a headless CSS, which allows you to create a API really quickly, and then allows you to make really dynamic websites that will look awesome in your portfolio. But basically, the approach is, what I would have is after completing these 4 courses, only 4 on Udemy, that's investment of like $55 or something like that, maybe 60 because they're $12 now. You're gonna have one HTML and CSS project in your portfolio. You're gonna have one JavaScript project. You're gonna have one React project, and you're going to have one project that basically showcases that you know how to use API and how to consume APIs. And again, you could do it with JSON server, you could do it with headless CMS, and then you start applying, right? You need to start creating your portfolio, creating your LinkedIn profile, and so on. And before we get too far, let's see if there's any questions or chats. Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff going on. Yep. And if you have any questions on what I just previously mentioned before we talk about the next step. So number one is you need to have projects that you build yourself. And I'll kind of show you, some stuff here. Yep. I'm just like bringing some stuff up. Yeah, let's see if you have any questions or anything that you want to suggest or anything else like that. But I'm going to show you some stuff. Oh, is it not hosted here? Yeah, I'm just looking at my Netlify. So here's the thing that I wanted to showcase here. It's okay to put, like when you're starting out and like you're learning, and you need to have a portfolio, regardless if you're self-taught, if you're going to a CS degree, if you're going to bootcamp, you need to have a portfolio to showcase your work and to showcase your experience. And you need to build your own stuff. And I'm just kind of looking at, okay, here, let me just share my screen to make it easier. And by the way, if you haven't smashed the like button, don't smash it for me, but smash it for all your cool friends, part of the conversation, having this amazing time on a Saturday. So I have some projects in my Netlify. So I want to show you this, and this looks cool. And this is a project that I built based off a tutorial. So I'm going to say that I was guilty of putting it into my portfolio when I started out, but it's a project that allows you to check out the most popular repos and then look up people by name or username, I guess, and check their score. Check their score to see who is scoring better at whatever. You know, you do battle and you could see like their stats that come up, who has more followers, who's following more people, like all this other cool stuff, and whatever. And so this project was built by following a tutorial, right? And so I did not plan that project myself. I didn't build it from scratch, but because I was starting out, I was like, I can't have an empty portfolio. So I went ahead and I added it to my portfolio. But the goal is once I create my own project, I'm going to share it in my portfolio and remove this one because I want my own work to be in my portfolio, right? And your first projects are not going to be good. They're going to be bad, but it's okay. You iterate on the projects to build better projects. That's the reality. Nobody ever builds that perfect project that gets them hired right away. I just want you to be aware of that. So let's take a look at some other projects. So another thing you could do is you might take a course and you might like take a course in HTML, CSS, right? And you're like, okay, I created this website by following an instructor. So maybe you don't want to yet make something from scratch. One thing you could do is to put your spin on it and customize it, right? My internet's a little slow, and I also didn't optimize the images, so they might load slower here. But here's an HTML and CSS project I built following Brad Traversy HTML and CSS course, and I put my own spin on it. It looks different than how his project works. And so if people kind of see mine and see his, it's like, hey, it looks different, right? You use your own styling. So you could do that and you could put in a portfolio. But your goal is for your portfolio to make sure that when you're starting out, you might have some Udemy course projects that you built, whatever, it's fine. But to eventually replace them with your own build projects, right? And so that's the goal. And so let's take a look here. So I had this project before in my portfolio, but I was like, listen, I need to create my own HTML CSS project that I am full creator of, right? And so this is the project that I built. And if you're the old school community members that's been with me forever, you all know this project. We built it together. We built it back then. I had a Slack. I do not now, but we built this HTML and CSS fully responsive project. And when I say build, I told you what I wanted to see, but I didn't, and I helped with maybe answer some questions, but I didn't walk you through how to build the code. I just reviewed some stuff. It was your job to build the code. So here's the thing. I realized I'm not sharing my screen, which is super stupid of me. So let me go back here. Let me back up here. Well, let me back up. First, let me showcase the project that I built with Brad Traversy. And I got to update my settings on my internet is quite slow today. Let me see here. Where's that Brad previous page? So the thing that I was talking about where you could build a project based off somebody else tutorial, but make it your own. So here's the project that I built based on Brad Traversy course. And I'm kind of repeating myself here. And this looks different than his project because I put my own spin on it, right? I put my own styling on it. And that's cool if you don't feel comfortable building something from scratch yet. That's perfectly fine. But the goal should be, the next thing is go ahead, build something that you take full ownership. So I found this mock-up in terms of like, I took pictures of this website that I saw. And what I did off the pictures, I basically recreated using HTML and CSS and JavaScript this website. This is like my own code written my own way, and that's the type of stuff that you have to have in your portfolio. So when you first start, you're gonna have projects that you might have built by following tutorial. Next, level would be take a project and personalize it. And third, start building projects that you basically created yourself from scratch. And one project that I'm working on right now is our Community One project. It's our Teams app. Let me log out. just so you could see it. So this one I'm building from scratch myself, right? And so I'm not gonna be too much around this point here, but I want to talk about that. You need to basically get out of tutorial hell by ditching it as fast as possible. If you're trying to like finish 5 courses, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, and possibly working with APIs, that's not even like 4 courses, right? Finish those courses, build your portfolios, and then the next step is to start applying. By the way, what you need to do while going on this journey is that you need to set up what I call and I know like some of you already seen this, but I'm just kind of going to reiterate this. But what you need to do is, while going on your journey, you don't have to create your own website, your own portfolio website. I went to, I think it's called Bootstrap Made, right? And literally I bought a template here. This is like the template that I bought. You could even get it for free. I'll just have the model, the watermark. I was like, I don't need the watermark. So like before you even start learning, here's what you need to do is you need to, number one, you probably need to know a little bit basic HTML and CSS, but you need to set up ASAP a portfolio website, which is like your business card or resume. And you might not have all the sections pre-filled. For instance, I just put this, what I did. I put some basic information about what I did. And then I have the skill section, and I need to update this. But the skill section is basically what I was learning, not what I actually knew. But the goal was to, at the time, Redux was something that I had to learn, but not the case now. But the point is, create this skill section, which might, even though you might not have these skills, this is going to be your guideline to get to where you want to be. And you might not have a resume, so skip your section. You might not have a portfolio, like I don't have a portfolio here. Don't worry about it. Have your basic contact information, but set this up to kind of put your stake in, kind of that commitment. I am going to be a developer. I'm working on these skills, and eventually this is going to be the skills that are true. And this is exactly kind of where I sit now. With the exception of C#, I haven't done C# in a while, but you know, HTML, JavaScript, React, now, you know, Next.js, Remix, Redux I don't use, but GraphQL and APIs I still use. It's now skills that I actually have, right? Number 2, day 1, when you decide to start learning to code, you need to set up a GitHub account. You need to do it. And I just want to show you something silly here. I opened this GitHub in 2013. Don't make the mistake I made. I wasted insane amount of time. And look, 2003, I didn't bother with anything about code. I had an intention of becoming a web developer, but I didn't do the work. In 2014, I didn't do the work. I did not commit to being productive. 2015, look at this, 1 contribution, whatever. 2016, still nothing. And I'm 36 at this time, right? So I could even, at 2017, I'm still not committing to GitHub. I'm working, but I'm not utilizing GitHub to show my progress. 2018, I was like, you know what? You got to start getting more serious about what you're doing. 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Look, I'm a developer. You know what I'm saying? You could see the history of my growth here. And I put whatever I built, even throwaway projects that didn't really lead to anything. But Norris, it's from 2015 to 2022. The first initial 4 years of wasted time. Don't make that mistake. Don't get stuck in tutorial hell. Start building, start committing code. And then finally, outside of having your portfolio website, right? Outside having your portfolio website that you did not build yourself, it's just a theme that you used to kind of showcase and put your stake in. Outside of having GitHub, next thing you need is you need a LinkedIn, and I want to share with you here. And for your LinkedIn, you got to make sure that, look, you got to start somewhere. You know, this looks all good and dandy now, where people like, I'm constantly getting people DMing me about job opportunities now, but that's not how I started. I started as literally my job journey. I was a co-founder of a martial arts school where we taught super kicks, karate for the kids, jiu-jitsu, and MMA. Then after doing that for 9 years, I decided, my partner and I, we had a falling out, so I left. So I got into sales, selling insurance. I was like, whatever. Then I found an internship doing WordPress stuff, very basic. Then I found my friend had a company which didn't really have any clients. We tried to get clients, but it was a big failure, but we tried it for a year and a half and 6 months during that time, where I basically built, React websites, even though at the end of the day, everything we built, there was still no client that purchased any of our templates that we did, whatever. But that was still an experience that I counted. Then I went back while I was still doing, having my internship and doing stuff. I went back because I needed money. I worked as a marketing manager retention at Gracie Sports USA. Then I finally got a job as a front-end developer working with WordPress. Then eventually I got hired at VersaSuite. Then eventually that led me to an amazing job as a software engineer at Red Hawk Research. And now I work as a Strapi developer advocate at Strapi, my dream job, which is fantastic. So I didn't get there overnight, and I want to share this with you because I don't want you to think that this happens overnight. So the dreams of getting hired in 3 months is not a thing. It takes time. KitKat did it in a really good time. I think it took her a year with everything considered. I think that would be like the minimum, I would say, that people will put, and it's always challenging, right? And so make sure you have a LinkedIn. Now, another thing that I want to talk about before we end this wonderful stream is number 2 is once you learn the skills by doing a bunch of Udemy courses. My kitty's saying hello, but you're gonna be in front. You're gonna be in front of the camera. You're going to walk on the keyboards. You have to go hang out downstairs. But anyway, or below the table. I lived in the smallest apartment. There's no downstairs here. But what I was getting at is that number 1, decide what you want to learn. 2, make a roadmap, make a plan, like I shared earlier in this video. 3, commit to only doing 5 courses, 5 learning resources only. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time. Follow the steps I outlined earlier in the video. Basically, complete the tutorial, build all the projects in the tutorial. Before moving on to the next resource, build your own project based on what you learned. By the time you complete 5 courses, you're going to have a bunch of projects that you built following the instructor, but you're also going to have 5 projects that you built yourself, and that will directly go into your portfolio. Once you are ready, and the stuff that I just demonstrated, for instance, creating your portfolio site, like don't build it yourself. Basically, use something like I used Bootstrap Made, and you could put your portfolio stuff in there. I think KitKat, you did the same thing. You literally use Bootstrap Made. I don't know. I don't want to put KitKat under pressure, but are you comfortable? Actually, I was going to say it's okay. It's fine. But I was going to say maybe sharing your portfolio site where you had some of your initial projects, I think would be cool. If you feel comfortable and you want to throw the link in the chat, do so. If not, that's okay too. I don't want to put people but basically create something that you didn't build yourself, just a place for your portfolio projects, right? Make sure you have LinkedIn, make sure you have GitHub, right? And then once that's done, and I realize I'm not sharing my screen, but that's okay. I've showed this previously and stuff like that. But what I want to say is once you build your courses, oh my God, Paul, have your coffee. Quick recap. People dropping like flies. Quick recap. 1, decide what you want to learn. 2, come up with a roadmap and a plan that you're going to stick to. So if you choose 5 resources for learning, stick with them. 3, finish all those courses, finish all the projects in that course. With those 5 courses, after you finish each course, build your own portfolio project based on what you learned. There's this kitty is always going to be here. I love my kitties. Anyway, and then 4, start applying, start building your network of connections, start reaching out. And for that, you need LinkedIn, you need GitHub, and you need your personal website. So let's go back to screen sharing here. So basically, this is where I got my template from. But if you go to paulbraslavsky.com. This is a template that I purchased, so I don't have a watermark, but you could literally get it for free. If you don't have a resume, don't worry about it, but you need to have some place which is going to be a home for your portfolio. You need to have LinkedIn and you need to have GitHub, right? Start this early because this is where you're going to build your connections. Now, here's the reality on getting a job. Let's do some real talk. Some people get lucky. I get lucky. The more networking you do, more connections you do, the more friends you have that work at other companies where you could say, hey, can you refer me to that company? The easier way you're gonna have to get a job. I literally know someone I met through the community, Anna. She got a job herself, Python and React developer. I have a friend, Yurgos, who just recently graduated bootcamp. What did I do? I connected because she's a Python developer. He went to bootcamp for Python development. I connected them together as friends, right? And she recommended him to the company and he got hired. And so if you're looking to figure out what is the fastest way to get hired, that's the path that I described. Know someone that could help you get hired by referring you to the company. If you do not, it will be very difficult to get a job. And I'm telling you this right now because I know it for a fact. A lot of people that I talk to who go just the resume route and don't try to find and build connections, don't go out of the way to network, the average number of resumes that they have to send out is like 300, 400 resumes. It's not unheard of. And what they will get 5 interviews. And out of those 5 interviews, they will get 1 to 2 offers. And that's other facts. And someone will be like, but I know this guy or girl that just applied and got hired. Yeah, they're the exception. That's not how it works. So you have to keep that in your mind. And so let's see if there's any questions or anything. No, it's fine. We'll keep going. But that's the reality of the situation, is that breaking into the field of web development, especially in 2022, it's hard, and you really have to go beyond the call of duty to really make yourself stand out. We talked about the learning path. We talked about kind of some of the things you need to do. And another thing that I'm going to share with you, another tip. I know I'm all over the place, but you could always rewatch this video on 2x speed to see all the previous stuff I talked about if you're just joining us, which is cool. But the last thing I want to talk about is this concept of learn in public, code in public. And this is around of deciding to build a project and sharing it publicly on Twitter, maybe writing about it. And a lot of people ask me, should I have a blog as a developer? So I started the YouTube channel because I suck at blogs and writing. So I started a YouTube channel to kind of document my journey of learning to code, breaking into the field. And if you've watched my very first video, you'll see like I'm some dude that had no idea what I'm doing. Now I'm some dude who still has no idea what I'm doing, but at least I work in the industry. And it was a long journey to get here, but it's possible. But here's the thing. I just talked about how networking is the fastest way to get hired. And some people are like, well, I don't know anybody. How do I do that? Well, join local meetups, right? Join local meetups and participate. You will build connections and you will build relationships that will lead to those recommendations that I talked about. And so let me share my screen here. And so this is the thing that you need to do. This concept of learn publicly and then go to meetups. So here's the meetup events. I'm actually going to be talking at Strappy, Greece. And here's the events. Some of them are near me that I go to. So I went to Remix Austin event, right? And what's cool about it, the first time I went to, I just basically talked about, not talked about, but I basically just participated. And then I was like, you know what? The Remix is pretty cool. So let me go ahead and try build something. So what I did is I built a Remix application. I tagged the Remix company. I tagged the person in the meetup. And what they said is like, hey, Paul, like if you ever felt comfortable and you want to give a talk at a meetup about Remix, go ahead and do that. And so that's what I did. I think that was back in August meetup. Let's see here. Yeah, so I gave a talk here on loading data. in Remix. And so now I have this connection with the founder of this meetup. And here's the cool part that I want to say, talking about making connections. And I know I'm kind of all over the place because there's just a lot of stuff that is important that I'm just kind of spitballing at you that helped me 100% to get to where I am. If you, like, I've been the person that didn't go that send 300 billion resumes to get hired. I'm more focused on connections because I knew those connections would lead to referrals that will make getting hired hard. And let me just kind of get to this question here. Hit Squad Gaming, you're absolutely right. The downsides of living in the middle of nowhere, there's no close meetups, so you can attend them virtually and build the same connections with them virtually. But here's the thing, go find even online communities, try to connect with people, try to build stuff. And so I'm gonna use just a couple of examples of, okay, I'm gonna talk about all my job experience, and this might like rub people the wrong way, but I just wanna kind of stress how important making connections is, because I don't want to lie to you and tell you that blindly sending resumes is enough. Every job I had was not based on the resume I sent, but it's based on the connection I had. Now, if I were not prioritize networking, making connections, I would be that person sending 400 resumes. Yeah, that's another great point, is if there's nothing locally happen to you and it actually looks good on your resume because people want to see that you're involved in the coding community, start your own meetup if you can. And then Benjamin, that's exactly what he said. And he said, I had to do this because there was nothing already organized. And that's amazing tip, and it looks great on your resume, 1000%. And that's another way to build connections. But let me just quickly talk about this Remix meetup. So this is how I introduced and got to know Can't See Dots, which I'm gonna do a live stream with on my Strappy where I work, which is amazing. Another thing is, because I went to the Remix meetup, I met Brooke, I gave a good talk that I don't know how it was good, but it did well. He actually reached out to me and recommended me to MC a bunch of events or conferences, and I was like, oh my God, I would have never gotten the opportunity if I've never went to this meetup and made this connection. So the idea that what I'm trying to say is that connections and relationships will always trump sending bajillion resumes blindly. So that's why I want to stress here. So I want to give you my history of getting hired and how that worked. And I want to tell you this because, people are going to be like, I want to be as honest, as truthful, even if it hurts. Truth hurts sometimes, all the time. Sometimes hurts. Well, but the point is my first job was, my first internship was working as a WordPress HTML and CSS developer. And I literally just worked on the front end, tweaking themes in WordPress. How did I get that job? Well, at the time, I used to teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I showed interest in building websites with WordPress because I built a bunch of WordPress for these business ideas that I had that never went to anything. And one of the students, she's like, hey, Paul, I see that you build a bunch of WordPress websites. I run a marketing agencies. If you wanted to, we're doing an internship. And if you wanted to kind of learn more about it, let me know. And I was like, oh my God, that's really awesome, because I'm actually looking to switch careers into development because, whatever reason. She's like, oh, that's pretty awesome. And so by me connecting with her, I got hired there as an intern. And then eventually that led to a contract role, which is fantastic. So next, how do I get my next job at Versa Suite? So I have a friend, Stephanie, she was working there. I said, Stephanie, hey, you know that I've been working with React. I've been learning React, and I friends with your husband. Your husband's been coaching me learning React. You know that I have the skills. Would you feel comfortable recommending me as a React developer at your company? Here's my resume. She said, Paul, you're a good dude. I have no problem recommending you. So here we go. Give me your resume. I'll go to my boss. She went to her boss. She made a case for me why they should hire me. And then next day, literally, I had an interview. Obviously, you need to pass the interview, but it's just an easier way to get in there. So I got an interview, right? And I got hired. Okay, how did I get my next job? This is why networking matters. And I know truth hurts, but I'm going to tell you this anyway. And I'm not saying that all the other stuff doesn't count. A lot of stuff does count. If sending out resume counts, but I just want to tell you to prove the point that don't underestimate power of networking, relationships, and building connections. My second job, working at Red Hawk Research. How did I get the job? That's an interesting story. That's a very interesting story. So David, who's the owner, well, one of the owners of the company, he used to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He was one of my students at my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. And he's like, Paul, I know you do WordPress. That's not what I'm looking for. But do you know anybody that does React? I was like, well, you know, the fact I do. One of my friends who is teaching me React, Jeff, he's amazing. Let me hook both of you up. So I hooked Jeff and David together. Jeff ended up building their product for them, working there for 3 years, 4 years almost. And then 4 years later, just like to kind of put things in perspective, Jeff, he reached out to me. He's like, Paul, like you've been working at Versa Suite as a React developer. Like I know your skill is good. So David at our company is looking for more React developers. And you were the top person on my list. So Jeff, to whom I recommended that project, 3 years, 4 years later, recommended me back to that company as a React developer. And that's how I got that job, through that recommendation. Kit Kat, I have to jump off. Paul, thank you for the stream. See you next time. Hey, great to see you. We'll have to chat to catch up, but great seeing you. Take care. Have a great rest of your evening. Right? Okay. And so that's how I got my job. Didn't have to send bajillion resumes. How did I get my job at Strappy? By getting involved in the community, by having this YouTube channel. I met John Smilga. I made a bunch of videos with him. We got a good relationship going, and we started doing a podcast, which we'll get back. The Web Dev Power Hour podcast will return. It was maybe next week or the week after that. It is happening. I talked to John. It's going to get back there. But anyway, I always been using Strappy. I always loved using Strappy in my project. I talked about, and John's like, Paul, I'm sick and tired of you talking about Strappy all the time. It was like, he's joking, of course. But he was like, have you ever considered working on Strappy? And I was like, no, never considered. And that's weird. I should, right? And so what did John do? He invited the Strappy DevRel, Daniel, who's now my manager, to the talk. And actually, it was kind of going to be interesting. Because like people be like, Paul, you're making all this stuff up. No, like there's no making stuff up, especially when it's true and it's exists. I'm gonna the pivotal podcast. I'm gonna find it. It's somewhere. It exists. It exists. I just have to find the stream that we had. I probably have to go on the channel. Anyway, it exists. So anyway, I whatever. I almost went down. It's on YouTube. So you'll find it. Go to Coding Addict. Check out a bunch of his Power Hour live streams that I co-host with him, and then you'll find that exact. Here, actually, I'm curious now. Like, I want to find it now. I'm like, I gotta find
line with Shopify
when the magic happened. So, view playlist. Should show up every day. The power of saying no, just enough. Blah blah blah. Strappy episode right here. This is where history was made. So. This is like the power of connections, and this is why I'm telling you all this stuff and why this is like super important before I get to some questions is that's John that I built a relationship and a connection with. We started our own, I know this is kind of crazy, but we started our own podcast called Web Dev Power Hour. That's me in the middle. And 3, that's Daniel. Before he met me, this is Daniel meeting me for the first time. We met on the stream, and literally at some point at the end here, at the stream, I say, hey, you guys are hiring, I'm going to send my resume and I'm going to say, Daniel, you referred me. And I'm going to hold you accountable. Daniel goes like, hey, no problem. And so I send my resume and then the rest is history. But every job that I had, right, has been based on the relationships that I built. And so this idea of coding in public, connecting with people. So now what I do, just quickly before I look at the questions, is when I find something cool that I do, I will start building it, right? I will start building that, whatever that cool thing is. And I'm going to share on Twitter, like what I'm building, right? And like, I want to like find an example from my previous tweets. And basically I would tag like the technologies that I'm using and start building like that relationship. I have, let's see here. Where's the example? Yeah, for instance, like, look, everybody loves Next.js, but I have you considered Remix. I'm pretty cool. Made a simple app, work in progress, powered by Remix, run, and by Strappy. So I share what I build and I tag the companies and I start a conversation. And then if people want to connect around and ask questions, like I'm putting it out there. Another thing that I started to do is not so much blog for other people to read yet, but sometimes like I learned something interesting and I want to commit it to memory. So I created this blog post where I at least like put like certain code snippets to remind myself or something that I learned and share it. And maybe it's useful for somebody else. I could go ahead and reference this blog. So I'm like publicly learning and doing stuff. And I realized I'm not sharing my screen, but here's, let me go back to Twitter for a second. Yeah, so I showed an example of a project I built, and I got to remind myself to share screen, but this is why, this is how, you know, the YouTube is not my profession. I'm just doing it out of continuing to build my network and my authority in the space, but more importantly, provide value to everyone who's looking to get started in development and tell them facts, truths. And truths hurt sometimes, but I want to make sure that I don't lie to anybody. And look, and I use Twitter to build connections. You might be familiar with some of these faces, but I have conversations with, you know, all these people on Twitter to kind of figure out how can I create value for them and also to extend my reach. But anyway, so here I build a simple project and I kind of say, hey, everyone loves Next.js, but have you considered Remix? It's pretty cool. Made a simple app, work in progress, powered by Remix Run and Strappy.js. And so basically I'm publicly building these projects. Here's the project. It's actually deployed at codingpublic.com because I want to promote people coding in public. I don't have too many entries here, but this is like my Remix project. You could recommend the topic, but I'm publicly building stuff. I'm publicly sharing things. I'm not embarrassed that something might not work right because we all are learning. But the idea is use the power of Twitter to share what you're building, build your connections, and go from there. And that's kind of like the importance that I wanted to share. Networking will always trump just blindly sending resumes. And again, if you're jumping in late, this is definitely, I say this about every stream, but definitely worth the rewatch. Run it on 2x speed while jogging or doing laundry. And Pablo, great to see you. Let me just catch up with some yeah, this is like an interesting point. So like, depending where you live, there are almost zero jobs with Python as the backend. If you did React as front end, you could do Node.js because you know JavaScript and pair it with startups, corporate, and the corporate stuff is built Java and .NET backend. And that's 100% true. There are, by the way, I'm just going to say, there are Python jobs. If you're going to do Python, there are jobs out there, but if you're in an area where you search Python jobs and nothing comes up, in your area, there's no jobs in Python. But Python is definitely a good language to learn. I didn't go that route. I went JavaScript for exactly the reason what Luke said. With one language, I could do front end and back end, which to me is amazing. Like, right, I don't have time to learn a bunch of new languages every time. So I committed, like, learn JavaScript well, and that way you could learn and do JavaScript on the front end, and then you could do JavaScript on the back end with Node, Express, or Koa, whatever. And so that is good. And then, so the answer tied to this, Paul, should I learn JavaScript for backend next? backend next to Node.js, or is it going to be overkill? What I would say, if you already know JavaScript, just learn Node, unless there's specific Python jobs you're looking for. If there's like a Python job that only requires Python, that's what I do. And this is another interesting question. And let me like kind of go down the list. And Malik, you're welcome. You know, I'm trying to basically, like, I have nothing to gain from this YouTube channel. I don't make any money from this YouTube channel. So I have no paid motivation to tell you anything but the truth and nothing but the truth, even though when it might offend or hurt some people. But I much rather, like, I'm the type of person that I much rather know the truth and then know the steps I need to take to change them than to live in a delusion. Like, I always hate it when asking someone out on a date, they're like, maybe. No, tell me yes or no. I either want to know I have no chance so I could move on and improve, or like, I hate ambiguity. And that's like the same thing with anything that I do, is I want to tell people the hard truth so there's no ambiguity in your mind of what you need to do to succeed in this field. And Pablo says, hi. Hello, Pablo. What's good ways to cooperating with open source projects? That is a great example. And so let me kind of do this quickly while Pablo's here before I go to, let's do Q&A now. I like that. Like, throw your questions. So GitHub. So I'm going to speak with like Strappy. So Strappy is an open source project, and literally what you could do, and every project has different ways of contributing, and they'll have documentation on that. But the most simplest way is when you find an open project, you know, let's say like Strappy, go ahead, like pull it, take a look at the code, familiarize with your code. And then what you could do is you could create an issue. Like, you could create a new issue. It could be a bug report, product feature request. And this is like some ways that people allow you to contribute. And so, for instance, you could do a bug report to help improve when you find something. And that's how you could contribute. There's many ways, and everybody does it differently, but literally I would just say, go to their GitHub, see what documentation they have, what they, you know, in their README file, what they talk about, you know, how you could get involved, and just start. Look through the issues. Another thing you could do is, by the way, is, let me go back to Strappy again, is outside of creating an issue, look at all the existing issue. And I think there's, to be honest, search issue isn't there like first good issue? Now, I thought we had a first good issue like flag, but I guess we don't. But what you could do is take a look at all the available issues, right? You know, find something like filling from another locale doesn't copulate. You could take a look, like, why is this not working? They'll show you the example. And what you could do is you could literally make a pull request with the changes that you made. And that's how you contribute to open source. And this is something I wish I've done earlier, which I didn't until I started working at Strappy. But that's one way of doing that. So let's take a look at what other questions we have. Habibo, hey guys, anyone just got their feet in the tech door or still learning React, want to share knowledge or motivate each other? 100%. Thank you for being this community. By the way, yeah, like definitely getting involved in Discord with other community members. Like, I don't have my own Discord because it was like too much to manage. I actually have a private community too. Like, if you want to, I don't even remember it. Like, I haven't been active. Those of you who've been following me for a while, you know that I had some serious life challenges recently. So I have not been participating yet. But the community still exists. We still have members. And And so we share stuff. People have a chat here and talk about like cool things we're doing. So I do have a community. I'm going to be more active. That's the goal, to get back into it by the end of this month. But if you want to become members of this community here, I'll share my screen here. This is the community that we have. The easiest way to get involved here is to send me an email at codingafter30@gmail.com. and send me a link to your GitHub or a portfolio project that you did, so I know that you're committed, and I'll send you a free invite. This community right now is free. One day, what I want to do is once this becomes like more active and I have more time to do this, I will use it as a value proposition for anyone that wants to support my endeavor on YouTube. I'll never sell courses, right? But I just don't want to ask like, hey, donate to my Patreon or whatever. I do want to create something that brings massive value and be like, hey, for like $2.99, if you want to be part of this community, you can do that. It's not what it is right now. Right now it's free because I'm too lazy to add a pay button, which is perfectly fine because I'm too busy working at work. But anyway, getting started in the community, getting involved in the community is super important. And then I talked about find Twitter spaces, talk to people, like ask questions, try to find people on different Discords. There's so many Discord coding channels. Literally ask if anybody would want to work on a project together. I actually am working on something that will help developers come together to work on projects together. I'll talk more about it later. It's a dream of mine, this project, but because I'm doing it on the side, I really don't have time, but it'll make it easier for developers to connect. And then participate in open source projects like we talked about. And so, yeah, and let's see here. So we've been talking an hour and 15 minutes. Anything, by the way, how's everybody doing? How's everybody's weekend? Any big plans? And let me know, what you've been up to, and if you have any questions, let me know. But I think we touched on kind of like, should you learn to code? Yes, you should. If you like it, is it going to be easy? No, it's not. It's going to be tough. I talked about, if you're late to this video, definitely watch it on 2-speed, like when you're doing something boring, like doing laundry, and get some of those like tips back. Eventually I'll add chapters. Like you have to imagine that, like for me, my time at work is like busy and life and everything, like because this YouTube channel is just a passion project. It's very hard for me to kind of have time to do everything I want to do on the YouTube channel. So I do these live streams just to kind of add what I'm thinking about, what tips I have that helped me or I didn't do right away that helped me tremendously. So definitely try to provide the best value you can. Parham says, how long does it approximately take to learn Node.js? So my question to you is not how long does it take to learn Node.js, it's how long would it take you to feel comfortable building something from like an API from scratch with Node.js. Some people will say 3 months. For me, like 3 months, if you have like a good cadence for your learning, like you're spending 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, literally coding, it'll make you take 3 months. But I would say to become competent with Node, realistically, it'll take 6 months, just with Node, to understand Node, how to build backend, how to do stuff. Like it takes time. And that's why I tell people, if you're looking to break into the industry, just go with front end. Just go with front end. Like I can't stress that enough. If I were to start learning Node and then say I'm a full stack developer, I still wouldn't be hired. It's too hard. There is no junior level, or at least really hard to find full stack developers, right? Because you have to be excellent front end and you need to understand backend. And in this case, it would be Node. So what I would say is, unless you're going specifically for backend development, which will take you a long time to break into the field, because as a backend developer, you need to know backend, you need to know DevOps, you need to do GraphQL stuff. Not GraphQL, what am I saying? Forget GraphQL. You need database stuff, like how to work with SQL databases, how to query to find stuff, how do you do database migration, how you write those scripts. All that stuff you need to know as a backend developer. That's why for me, it's like ludicrous to be like, oh, I'm just gonna learn backend and get a job in 30 days or 3 months. No, you won't. No, you won't. I'm still transitioning into full stack as a front-end developer, and there's a lot of learning. And I don't call myself full stack developer yet, and I don't call myself a backend developer yet, because exactly those reasons I mentioned. Oh no, Jiu-Jitsu 1000% valuable. There's so many life lessons in Jiu-Jitsu, learning lessons, and just the art of Jiu-Jitsu. Well, I should say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in particular. Dealing with adversity, a lot of lessons there. Dealing with difficult situations, a lot of lessons there. The idea why learning things on a conceptual basis is not enough. The fact that you need real world experience. I learned that from Jiu-Jitsu, because at the end of the day, you could come to as many classes you want, take jiu-jitsu lessons as many times as you want, but until you do the sparring session on a live, full resisting opponent, you don't really know if you know jiu-jitsu. You'll never know. And that's why that's such a big part of your practice. And in web development terms, that's basically the reason why you need to build stuff from scratch. That's your real life sparring battle that you're having with yourself to sharpen and to improve your skills, like 100%. Nice. Sorry, late on stream. It's okay. And I always leave them to rewatch. You can check it out. A lot of great value here. But don't be sorry, late on stream, but whatever. Currently working on redoing my portfolio in React. That's fantastic. Are you doing like React, or are you doing like Next.js or that'll be cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I think React definitely got me hired faster because I knew React. Get a job. I'm at the point of having learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and I'm beginning with React now. I want to start looking for jobs in a few months more. Yeah, Pablo, what I would say, literally just focus on exactly what you're doing. And as soon as you create a React project based on what you learn, put it in your portfolio, start applying. It's going to be a process. Think about all the things I talked about earlier on the stream about, and if you missed it, rewatch it, about networking, why it's important. And then we could talk about, when you're ready, start working on your resume, start working on other stuff. And by the way, and that whole applying bit, there's a lot to it, and I'll have to do another separate stream about it. But yeah, as soon as you complete the React course and build a project based on what you learn, put it on your portfolio and start applying ASAP. By the way, I just want to say, hey, what's up, Delvin? So I know I had a missed call from you. We're in a different time zone. That call for me was like 5 a.m. So I wasn't able to pick it up. And I've just been so out of it that I was like, I should respond to you and text you back. I hope you're doing good. And then, but his question is, the web and many things are not done evolving. Use your imagination, create something new. Rust wasn't. And I like this approach from the standpoint of exploring new things, doing something cool. If you're going the route of creating something yourself, creating your own business, creating your thing. But I would say if you want to just get a job, stick to stuff that already exists. And the fastest way, in my opinion, is to get a job with JavaScript and React as a front-end developer, 1000%. Name some web dev courses, Paul, except from John Smilga. The thing that I only go to John Smilga courses because they're excellent. They're excellent. So but what I would say for you is find any course that you like, that makes sense, and take it because you like the instructor. Just don't take too many courses. Take one course for the area that you want to learn. What I would say also, another thing that I do, I like Front-End Masters website. It's not cheap, but that's a good place. I learned a lot of the higher concept stuff there. Also, Egghead.io is really good. There's plenty of websites out there. There's no shortage of code courses. Parham, what I would say to you is pick whatever course that you like and just make it one course. Complete, learn it from front to back. Make sure that you understand everything enough that you're able to build your own project based on what you learn. And that's going to be the secret. Hit Squad Gaming. I'm working through Jonah's JavaScript course right now. Do you have a specific recommendation for React once I'm comfortable enough to move on from JS? To be honest, I like John Smilga courses because all his courses have a lot of practice stuff in it. And I think it's through practice you get better. But if you like Jonah and how he teaches, I think he has a good React course as well. I have it, but I didn't take it. And so that's what I'm getting at is find the instructor you like, with whom you're able to jive with, and take their course and go through it. But here's the caveat that I want to make here. Finishing courses does not land you a job. So if finishing courses doesn't land you a job, what lands you the job? You get the job based on projects you build from scratch and the experience you gain from that process. Tutorials give you the knowledge to start building projects from scratch and failing forward. Because going from tutorial to building a project from scratch is impossible. It's just something you just got to do. And that's what I did. And I now just start, and I didn't know where to start. And it was just like failing forward. That's why I call failing is learning. And that, get that it's a good thing. And now I feel more comfortable starting projects from scratch, not because I did tutorials, but because I literally practiced starting projects from scratch and doing it over and over again, failing over and over until I made it forward. And that's what you have to do. And I can't stress that enough. So building your own projects from scratch, the experience gained from that learning journey and that project in your portfolio is what's going to get you hired. One, you'll have a project that you built yourself. Two, when people point anywhere in that code base, you will have an answer because you did it yourself. You understand the code. Mistakes that you learned from in your personal project will stick with you forever. And that's how you get hired. Let's see here. Let's see. Yeah. Some people make me laugh when you make it look that easy to learn to code. Learning to code is not easy. Learning to code is really hard. The real programmers that I talk to, they all say that it's difficult, it's hard, it's not that easy. And it's only easy because they've done it for years. So the goal to say that you're going to get a job in 3 to 6 months to a year, it's, you might, maybe. Not been my case. And the more learning I do, the more I learn that I don't know. So my confidence of stuff that I know keeps going down, down, and down because of how much stuff that I still yet to learn and don't know 100%. And so, yeah, that's the thing. It's hard. Okay. Do you recommend any learning resources or instructors? I always recommend John Smilga because his courses are excellent. He doesn't the way his mind works. He's very structure focused. So his courses are laid out in a very step-by-step way that build on top of the previous thing that you learned. And he also has a lot of opportunity for you to practice things that you've done. With that being said, there's no shortage of good resources. If you go on Udemy and you just search any of the top rated courses, all of them are going to be good. From owning all of those, I literally like John Smilga, and it's part of it is a personal preference, right? And so you need to decide what you like. But in terms of other resources I talked about, Egghead.io, Frontend Masters is really good. I even took some courses on LinkedIn Learn. Udemy is good because the pricing, the reason why I like, Udemy. The reason why I like Udemy is because it's country-based pricing. So if you live in a country where your income level is different, the courses will actually cost less. And I like Udemy exactly for that because it's making education available to people, which is not gated by the amount of money you have to pay. Front-end Masters is $49 a month. It's ridiculous. Egghead.io is $250 a year. So that's why I like Udemy. And in terms of instructors, any one of the instructors that is top rated will be good. Just make sure the course is relevant. My opinion doesn't matter. Parham, your opinion does matter. That's why I'm asking you. You're a Udemy legend. Yeah. Now, first of all, I'm a nobody. I'm a random dude on the internet who just decided to switch careers. And I literally say it in the truest sense possible to the fact that I don't want people to admire me. What I want people to do is to listen what I say. And when I say, dude, I messed up, I made this mistake, it literally cost me 2 years of learning development. Don't make that mistake. I'm telling it from a point of pain. I'm not selling anything to you. I have no monetary gains. That's why I recommend instructors that I like. And for me I just want you to not waste your time. Time is the only thing you never get back. And this is why the content that I make is the way I make it. So Pablo, great question. What I would say, if you complete a good Udemy course on React, it'll cover all the fundamentals that you need. The only thing that I would say that you should be aware of, for instance, and it also applies to JavaScript, it's how to consume APIs. And you could do something like JSON server to create a fake API, or you could find, people like the Pokemon API, whatever. I'm not a big fan of Pokemon, so I don't care. But you could find there's so many APIs available. I don't even look for APIs. I use a headless CMS, and I like Strapi a lot, where you are able to quickly create an API from which you could dynamically get data to your front-end project. So what I would say is learn how to request data using Fetch or Axios on your React front end and display it on the screen, like as like and then anything else that's covered by the course that you took. And it's probably gonna cover some data fetching as well. Jonah doesn't have a React course, brother? Are you serious? Are you serious? No way. No way. I'm about to be called out live, which is fine, which I don't mind. I'm probably wrong. So, not YouTube, I said Udemy. Okay, let's see, Jonah. He doesn't have a React course, what a shame. I probably was thinking about the other guy, by the way. There's like another one. Yeah, maybe I think I got him confused. I don't know how to spell, by the way. Steven Greiner, John Smigla, blah, blah, blah. I always confuse him with Maximilian. Yeah, so Maximilian has a React course. So if you're on to take a John Smigla React course, I would recommend Maximilian React course is really good. Like this one right here. Yep. People like, you don't own this course, Paul. What kind of nonsense are you trying to tell me? Like, that's because I have 2 accounts. I own a lot of courses. I own more courses than I like to admit, and I realize I'm not sharing my screen. But you're right. He doesn't have a course. It just looked. That is shameful. Jonah, make a React course. Yeah. So I would say do a Maximilian course. If you don't want to do John Smigla course, 100%. That's probably fine. But just do one and then build a bunch of stuff. Man, it's been a while. Yeah, I always confuse Jonah with Maximilian. Maximilian 100% has a React course. Yep, and exactly. Just go to React once you're comfortable with basic JS. Yes, sex, objects, etc. 100%. And you will learn more JS at the same time. 1000%. I actually didn't go, Josh, with the Odin project. I know a lot of people have that. I didn't even use Free Code Camp. I created like my own curriculum. But what I would say, one thing, this is something that I really big believer is, there's too many resources to pull you away, and they all are good, right? They all are good. And so whatever resource you pick, they will all get you to where you need to go. The biggest thing that I would recommend is don't pick too many resources. If you're going to use a bunch of courses on Udemy, just use that. If you're going to use the Odin project, just use that. Because you need to spend more time at the resources that you're consuming, so you get better, deeper knowledge based on what you're learning. So I didn't try the Odin project, but I heard a lot of good things about it. So is Net Ninja React course in Udemy any good? Problem is it's too short, like 20 hours. I think I have it, but I didn't take it. So I can't tell you. And the reason why I didn't take it is because everything that John Smigla covers in his course, he does. Also, like, I'm not a big fan of Firebase anymore. Firebase is amazing, but if you're looking to get hired to get a job, right? Like, you're not going to be using Firebase. You're going to be using like SQL database, you know. Even MongoDB is not that like prevalent, but I would still rather build something with MongoDB than Firebase at this point. So in his course, he's using Firebase, and there's nothing wrong with Firebase. It's just that there's like, what job are you going to apply that you're like, I'm using Firebase? No, you got to go to a job where they're like, we're using SQL that, you know, and that returns data through our API, you know what I mean? And so I like to find courses which either, I mean, that's fine because you are going to learn, like, I might try to have a course where they pull data from an API rather than from Firebase, just my opinion, because that's kind of closely related. So I probably wouldn't go with that course either. I would go with like Maximilian React course, or go with like John Smigla is my #1 choice. Yeah, the best way is to build projects 100%. If you're not building a project from scratch, like, what are you doing? Like, I want to show you an example here. Like, I'm going to show you an example. Like, check this out. I'm gonna go and do terminal. This is something you're gonna gain. Desktop CD Koa. I have a SaaS that I'm working on. CD Koa, ls CD Koa, basic server code. So here's the thing. This is the argument that I'm going to make for you why you should not do tutorials. In tutorials, you're copying stuff, right? You're copying stuff. And so a lot of that stuff, you're going to think I know what it is. You don't know what it is. You're just pretending because you're copying. Here's a Koa backend application I'm working from scratch that I'm building myself. Like anybody, like here's the thing. On the screen, anybody, I'm going to stop. Like I'm going to stop here. Like anybody pick a thing on any line and ask me a question about it. And this is at the point where I tell you, build stuff from scratch because you're going to, and by the way, I am using an SQL database here. And I'm talking with to it with Next.js, which I don't know if I should have. I probably should have got an ORM. But you know, whatever. I'm masochistic. I like to suffer. But yeah, everything, all the projects that I do, like, so this is hologram. This is actually an interesting thing. And by the way, if anybody pick any line, like the point that I'm getting to, anything that you ask me a question on, I wrote it myself, so I will have the answer for you. That's not the case. It's not the case in, it's not the case when you do a tutorial. You might think you know, but if someone asks you a difficult question, you won't be able to answer. This is why building projects from scratch is a superpower. And hologram, I love your comment. I want to share it. I wish there were more courses on Postgres. Yeah, and a lot of times, like, I have to literally find documentation and read documentation to learn more about it. But everyone just teaches Mongo, which is funny. When I started this course, and you could see it in, let me go to my templates. This is basically removed, and the reason why it's removed is because I decided not to use Mongoose. I'm like, I don't need to use MongoDB. I need to do something that's more applicable. So instead, I converted to using, for this particular project, I'm using SQLite, but I could use Postgres in production, and I'm literally querying data directly using Next.js from an SQL database. And this is where my SQL3 lives, and all this other. Here's my next file where I connect to my SQL database, and if I wanted to in production, I could use Postgres. But this application is basically literally doing like, what are the things I would do at work, so I need to do here. So let's take a look at it. So Pablo has a question. Yeah, that's because it's not that they're lazy. It's just setting up MongoDB is so easy, so they go with Mongo. And that is true, and I agree with you. So Pablo, he says, what does generate service does? So let's go to my index file. This is actually kind of cool, like what I'm doing here, which I'll talk about in a second. So generate service, right? Go to the definition here. Basically, what it does is will automatically generate my service functions based on a template. And I'll demonstrate that for you real quickly. So check this out. If I go to my users, notice how we have our configuration, which is basically all the routes where I want to, like, that people hit. And whenever you hit a route, you get to go to a controller. And the controller, right, will call the service. And the service is what will call the database. Now, check this out. So I could write this code by hand. But if you look at the post category and user category, their code pattern is the same. There's just different small little differences. And so what I wanted to do, I didn't want to recreate all the controllers and services manually by copying and pasting. What I wanted to do is I wanted to have it manually generated when the application runs. So if you look at the config, I want to use this config file to generate the appropriate controllers and services so I don't have to manually code it. And that's coming, I'm using something called liquids.js. So here's my core service template. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this so this is no longer in the template. Hold on, remove the extra thing here. So it's no longer in the template because I don't need this anymore. And I'm going to go back to core controllers. Okay, I removed it. And so check this out. This is my template. Whenever my app starts, if the controller or the service, and you ask generate service, doesn't exist, it will generate. So what I'm going to do is inside user, I'm going to delete the controller folder. And I'm going to delete the services folder. Now, inside my application, I'm going to run node index.js. So notice I deleted the controllers and the services. All I have is the config and the route. So based on the routes, when my application starts, it will check, does the service exist? If it doesn't, it will generate it by itself. So I do node index.js. And now we go back to that folder, users. Check this out. We have the controllers generated from my template, and we have services generated from my template. And in my template, I had a mistake. And so let me fix that. Actually, do I have all the quotes here? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so what I could do is I could change that in my template. So I had an extra thing here. Yeah. And so now I could regenerate. But anyway, so that's what generate service handles. So let's look at generate service in detail. So what does it take? It takes the API name. It takes that template that you get through Liquid Engine, and it takes the API path, which is the controller, user service. In this case, it's going to be user service. It will check, does that file exist? So for instance, because the service exists, it will just return null. It won't do anything. But if I delete the service, right? When I run the code again, it'll be, does the service exist? It checks it here. If the service path doesn't exist, which it doesn't, it will fire this code, which will get the template. It would create that file using FS. We will write that based on the template that we have. Once we write that code to our file, which that's how it gets generated, we close. And you could learn more about FS by searching FS extra on NPM to get more idea. And that's basically what it does. It's responsible for writing what's in my template here. So again, notice how I deleted services. If I rerun the code again, notice that the services folder is back. And that's what that generate service function does. And again, I took a really crazy example to be like, hey, if you were doing a tutorial, you would not be able to so comfortably talk about your code like I'm doing right now. Why? Because I wrote this from scratch. I failed through trial and error, and this is how I know. Let's take a look at other questions. So create, delete, update, they are abstractions for the SQL commands that match the verb. But in my code, it's a service. Well, actually, let me go back to, if you're talking about connects, connects.js has methods that line up with the write, delete, update, whatever, like the query thing that you do. So I'm just like looking it up here. So if you go to Next.js website, and so you could read the documentation, which is something. So it's select, insert, update, delete. That's what allows you to build queries and do certain things within your database. And for instance, here's an example. They're using next, get the table where the user's table where ID is equal to something, and return the first entry that you find. And so I'm using next to communicate with my database, and underneath it'll have an equivalent query that's it's calling. And then in my code, if we take a look here, let me share my screen again. In my code, if you look at the controllers, this is naming for my API. So, and this is something that we also do at Strappy. So we have find controller, which is basically responsible, and you could call it whatever you want. As this is just the convention that I'm following, which will kind of match like with, this will fire a get request, right? I could like call it get something, but like for me, in my mind, this is like arbitrary name, but I needed to make sense. So find will find all the entries. Find one will find one entry based on ID. Create will create a new entry. Delete will delete the entry, and update will update an entry, but update in would be put or patch, but I'm just calling it something that makes sense to me. And this is like a very common thing. And so for services, I name them similar, find one. And then if I were making a request from my front end, I would also say find one. So it's something that I can mention that I'm following, but you could name them whatever you want here. It could be, get item, get items, get item, create item, whatever, but for me, this is the convention I'm following. That's interesting. My sister-in-law is Python dev, but she didn't use Python to break in. And I think that's interesting. And maybe because a lot of the Python jobs, like Python stuff that you do is like back-end oriented. And so like, that's probably something you learn once you have a job, and then you start transitioning to doing full stack and you start picking up Python. Josh says, cheers for the reply and thanks for all you say. No, thank you, Josh, for being here. I like this kind of content with real code projects. That's what I'm all about. And that's what I don't like tell you one thing and then I do something else. And my like I do exactly what I talk about. And if I make a mistake, I'll tell you. So what's the difference between controllers and services? Well, this is the Koa. Technically, this right here, this code that I'm writing is an API. And the way I would look at it is like this. So controllers, like let's take a look at this user controller. It should not be responsible for doing crazy business logic, right? I might have some like business logic that I want to do. So your controllers, they want to be lean. Like for instance, I can take all this logic from the service, stick it into the controller, and it'll work the same. The way that I look at controller, basically when you're an API, when someone makes a URL request to a certain route, a route matches, it will call the appropriate controller. The controller's job is to stay lean, not handle any business logic, and instead just basically call the appropriate service. So a service is what will have whatever, and yet here's a very simple business logic, but this is where you would put all your business logic that does a thing. So your services might be longer. If they get too long, your service could call another service or another function. But for controllers, you should always have a mean and lean. And so this is probably, I might add, like I have to add some error handling here, which I didn't, but that's like the only thing I would do. I would do like a try catch, some sort of error handling, and just get the thing and keep it lean. Anything else would go into a service and my controller will call the service. I hope that answers your question. Northern Chim, great chatting with you. Have a great one. Thanks for stopping by. The project that I'm demonstrating is not use next create project. This particular project is built by something called Koa.js. And Koa.js is not as popular which is sad because it's an amazing project. But Koa.js, English, Koa.js, I guess it's like in maintenance right now. Introduction. Oh no, I just hit the wrong thing. I went to their Chinese website. No, Koa.js is a very lean backend framework built by the Express team, which is really awesome. And in Express, there's a big issue with promises and having like the callback hell, where in Koa, everything is using await async, and everything is a middleware, and it's pretty cool. But you could check it out. But basically, this is a Koa.js app, and if you look at index, so I have a start function, and basically what I do, I already have Koa installed and set up. So basically I create a new Koa instance, which gives me access to all the Koa methods, and then basically setting up my server and using, Koa methods like listen will allow me to listen on port for basically have my server running. So basically it's like Express, but it's just a backend framework, where Next.js is a node-based front end or full stack framework. I literally like decoupling my APIs from front end and back end. I love Next.js. I love even Remix. But when I work on projects, I like to think of an API that has a specific task, which could be called by other front-end projects, not just the one in particular. And then all my front-end projects are decoupled, so they could call multiple front APIs as need to. Hopefully that made sense. Exactly, Luke. Said it better than I did. Yeah, and so we've been going hard, about to hit 2-hour mark. So with that being said, I just want to say, man, I love all of you because, to be honest, I'm some random dude on the internet. This community would not be without you. You're literally the building blocks, and I keep saying that every stream because I really appreciate all of you here. And my motivation for this channel is just to give the true reality of what it's like switching careers to web development late in my life, and what has been my experience and all the mistakes I made. So if I could prevent you from making a mistake and saving time, the mission is worth it. I don't have any motivation to not be honest here because, first of all, I'm too old. Like, I don't have time to just pretend to be something that I'm not. So I'm just some regular dude who's transitioned into web dev. And the point of this challenge is to give you my opinion and the reality of what it's like learning to code. And that's why I do it. And if someone benefits from it one day, maybe I'll figure out how to, people that want to support this channel monetarily, but I'll never sell you anything. Like, if I sell stuff, it'll be something like merch. I might have, because that way it's like, if you don't want to buy, you don't want to buy it. Who cares? I might not even do merch. Merch is stupid. I actually forget. I'm not good at merch. Like, if I ever to monetize this channel, it would be basically in a way where it's like, hey, I have this extra community. If you want to donate something to this channel, if you donate something, you could become a member of this community, which whatever, like Patreon, but just like my own thing. And I would do it not from the standpoint like you need to join the community, but I would do it from the standpoint, if you want to support the channel, here's an additional benefit that you could have. But how do I make my money? I make my money at my job. How do I want to make more money? I want to make more money by starting a SaaS project, which will probably fail, but I'm working on one right now, which will make it easier for developers to come together and work on projects together. That's like my big idea in a nutshell. And the last questions before I go, how do you know when you know enough? I've been working for 2 years and still feel like, yeah, that feeling will never go away. But I would say, Benjamin, start applying and then start gauging the interview response to figure out what you need to update and change. Like, maybe it's your resume needs to update. Maybe it's the type of interviews you go on or the type of problems you encountered. And it becomes like this like kind of puzzle that you have to figure out. But I would say after 2 years, I feel like you know enough. So just start applying and let that applying process be the learning that will take you to the next level, if that makes sense. So that's what I would say. And I think that's it. Like usually I have a lot to say. I could probably talk for 10 hours straight, but I want you all to also enjoy your weekend. So I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for all that stop by. I am so honored and lucky to have all of you be part of the community. Keep staying awesome. Continue building cool stuff. And if you ever build cool stuff and you have Twitter, tag me on Twitter, share the thing that you're building. You know what I mean? I think it'll be awesome. But with that being said, thank you so much. I'll see everybody later.